Okay, let's dive right in. We're about to pull back the curtain on a corner of the financial world you probably don't hear much about. But here's the thing, it's bigger, it's older, and you could argue it's way more powerful than the entire stock market combined. This is a story about where the real power in the world actually sits.
And this quote, it just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? We're all taught to watch the stock market, right? The Dow, the S&P 500. But that's just the flashy, noisy part of the casino. This gets to the real heart of it. The quiet, generational power isn't about owning a piece of a company, it's about owning a piece of a country's debt. So who are these real bosses of finance? Well, while the stock traders are getting all the headlines, the people playing in this hidden market, they're the ones actually making history. They're the ones who decide how much it costs a country to build roads, to fund its schools, or even to fight a war. They control the wiring behind the scenes of the entire global economy.
To really get a handle on this, we've got to start with the absolute basics, the fundamental building block of this whole system, because before we can understand how this massive, shaky tower of debt got so tall, we first have to understand what each little block is actually made of. And honestly, it's incredibly simple. A government bond is just a fancy IOU. That's it. When a country needs to raise money, it issues these bonds. If you buy one, you're basically just lending the government your money. And in return, they promise to pay you back in full down the road, plus a little extra in interest along the way. For a long time, it's been considered pretty much the safest investment on Earth.
So let's just trace that journey really quickly. Step 1, a government needs cash. Step 2, it issues a bond. Step 3, investors like you or me or a giant pension fund buy it. And step 4, the government pays back the loan with interest. See? Simple. But here's the real question. What happens when you do this over and over and over again, for trillions and trillions of dollars? Well, this is where that simple little IOU blows up into something absolutely colossal. We're leaving the world of individual loans and entering a global game on a scale that is almost impossible to wrap your head around. So just for a second, I want you to take a guess. Think about the value of all the stocks in the world. Apple, Amazon, Google, all of them combined. How big do you think this market for government debt is compared to that? $130 trillion. I mean, that number is so huge, it almost sounds fake. It completely dwarfs the global stock market. It's not even close. This is by far the largest financial market on the planet, and it represents this vast ocean of promises that governments have made, an ocean of debt that our entire global economy is floating on. Now, in a game this massive, you better believe there are some very, very powerful players, and they have a name that sounds like it's straight out of an old Western. They aren't presidents or politicians, but they can bring entire countries to their knees.
And this is the absolute key to understanding all of this. You'd think that the government borrowing the money is the one in charge, right? But in a $130 trillion game, the power actually flips to the people, or the institutions doing all the lending.
And here they are. They're called bond vigilantes. These are your massive investment funds, your giant pension managers, other countries' central banks, the ones who own huge chunks of a country's debt. And if they don't like a government's economic policies, say they think it's spending too much money, they can start selling off that country's bonds all at once. This tanks the price and sends interest rates soaring, which basically makes it more expensive for that country to borrow. It's their way of delivering financial punishment.
So let's put all the pieces together, because this is where you start to see the risk. You have a market of unbelievable size, and you have these powerful players who can make huge, sudden moves. What does that create? An incredibly fragile system. A system that keeps world leaders up at night.
Honestly, this is the best way to picture it. The entire global economy is just one giant game of Jenga. And the tower is built out of debt. The foundation was laid a long, long time ago. And we've just been building on top of it ever since. Every time a government issues a new bond to pay for something, it's like someone is carefully sliding another wooden block onto that tower. It gets higher, it looks more impressive, but it also gets a lot more precarious. The taller it gets, the more just one little wobble could bring the whole thing crashing down. And guess who decides which block gets pulled next? Who gets to test the stability of the whole structure? Yep, the bond vigilantes. By choosing to sell off one country's bonds, they are literally yanking a block out from the middle of the tower, forcing everyone else to just hold their breath and see if the structure holds. And this gets right to the heart of it. The lies aren't necessarily deceptions. The lie is the fragile promise that this can all be managed forever, that the tower can just keep getting higher without ever falling.
Every single finance minister, every president, they know just how unstable this whole thing is, and they live in constant fear of the day the vigilantes decide to pull one block too many.
So we're left with this really unsettling picture. A financial structure of unimaginable size, built on promises, policed by a handful of unelected investors who can punish entire governments. It really makes you wonder, looking at the state of the world today, who's about to make the next move? And will the tower still be standing when they do?